I smiled politely at the table full of distinguished donors, my fingers wrapped around a champagne flute that had cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. The woman to my left, Dr. Lisa Romano, my department head's golden protégé, was mid-laugh, her hand dramatically covering her mouth as if my presence was the punchline to some elaborate joke. As I walked out of the ballroom, I paused beside the silver-haired gentleman in the corner, Dr. Raymond Chen, chairman of the National Cancer Research Foundation. I leaned in close and whispered, "You might want to check who actually authored those 47 papers before you sign that check." The coffee in my hand had gone cold an hour ago, but I hadn't noticed. I was staring at the email on my laptop screen, reading the same sentence for the third time. Dr. Webb believes it would benefit the department if you considered taking a sabbatical to focus on personal development. Personal development. That was rich. My husband, James, walked into our kitchen, already dressed in his suit for his morning surgery. He was a cardiovascular surgeon, the kind of doctor who saved lives before most people finished their first cup of coffee. We'd been married for 11 years, together for 14. He poured himself orange juice and glanced at me over the rim of his glass. "You okay? You've got that look." "What look?" "The one where you're doing calculus in your head while simultaneously planning someone's demise." He smiled, but there was concern in his eyes. "What did Marcus do now?" "Marcus Webb. My department head. The man who'd been my mentor once, back when I was a bright-eyed postdoc with dreams of revolutionizing cancer treatment. The man whose messy divorce I'd supported him through. Covering his classes, managing his research projects, keeping the lab running while he fell apart. The man who'd promised that once he got back on his feet, we'd be equal partners in the groundbreaking immunotherapy research we'd started together. That was 3 years ago. He wants me to take a sabbatical. James set down his glass with a sharp clink. "What? Why?" He didn't say exactly. Something about personal development and giving other team members opportunities to shine. I turned my laptop so he could read the email. "It's the gala this weekend. He's presenting our research, my research, to the foundation. $15 million in funding is on the line." "Your research that he's presenting?" "Our research, technically. Both our names are on the early papers." I closed the laptop, suddenly exhausted. But yes. The breakthrough came from my work. The trials I designed, the protocols I developed. James sat down across from me, his surgeon's hands folded on the table. Those hands had held countless hearts, literally. Right now, they looked like they wanted to strangle someone. "Sarah. You can't let him do this." "I'm not letting him do anything. I'll be at the gala. I'm listed as part of the research team. Are you sure you want to go? If he's trying to push you out." "I'm going." My voice came out harder than I intended. "I've earned my place there." He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. Then we'll both go. I'll cancel my evening rounds." "You don't have to. Sarah." He reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm going." End of discussion. The gala was being held at the Fairmont, in one of those ballrooms with crystal chandeliers and enough gold leaf to fund a small research project. I'd spent 2 weeks' salary on a navy dress that made me look professional without trying too hard. James looked handsome in his tuxedo, his hand warm on the small of my back as we walked through the marble lobby. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. "No. Yes. Terrified, actually. But I'd chewed off enough lipstick in the car that I didn't want to admit it." The ballroom was already crowded with doctors, researchers, hospital administrators, and the wealthy donors who made our work possible. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. A string quartet played something classical and forgettable. I spotted Marcus immediately. He was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a cluster of young researchers who hung on his every word. He'd lost weight since the divorce, let his hair grow just long enough to look distinguished. He was laughing at something, his head thrown back, every inch the brilliant department head who'd brought in more grant money than anyone in the hospital's history. Next to him, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my car payment, was Dr. Lisa Romano. 29 years old, hired 18 months ago fresh out of her fellowship. She was brilliant, I'd give her that. But she was also ambitious in a way that made you check your back for knife marks. She'd attached herself to Marcus the day she arrived, and he'd been only too happy to take her under his wing. "Dr. Chen." Marcus spotted us, his smile broad and warm. Sarah. You made it. And you brought James wonderful. We shook hands. His grip was firm, confident. The grip of a man who slept well at night. Wouldn't miss it, I said, matching his smile with my own. Big night for the department. For all of us, he corrected smoothly. Sarah, you remember Dr. Romano, of course. Lisa turned to me, her smile sharp as a scalpel. Dr. Chen. I love your dress. So practical. I felt James stiffen beside me, but I kept my smile in place. Thank you. You look lovely as well. Marcus has been telling me all about the presentation, Lisa continued, her eyes bright. It's so exciting. This research is going to change everything. Our research. The words sat on my tongue, but I swallowed them. Not here, not now. We should find our table, James said. His voice carefully neutral. Excuse us. As we walked away, I could feel their eyes on my back. James leaned down to whisper in my ear. Did she just insult your dress? Among other things. I'm adding her to my list of people who need attitude adjustments. Despite everything, I smiled. Your list is getting long. I'm a surgeon. I'm very good at cutting things out. We found our table near the front of the room. My name card sat in front of a chair with a clear view of the stage. I picked it up, ready to sit down, and then froze. The card was identical to all the others on the table, heavy cream cardstock with elegant calligraphy. Except where my name should have been, someone had written in careful black marker. Dr. Webb's research assistant. Note Dr. Sarah Chen. Note even just Sarah. Dr. Webb's research assistant. James saw it at the same moment I did. I heard him inhale sharply. Sarah. It's fine. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from somewhere outside my body. I set the card down carefully, precisely, as if it were made of glass. It's just a card. But it wasn't just a card. It was a message, clear as any email or memo. This was my place in the hierarchy. This was how Marcus saw me. How he wanted everyone else to see me. I looked up and saw Marcus watching from across the room. He raised his champagne glass slightly, a small smile playing at his lips. Next to him, Lisa was saying something to a gray-haired man in an expensive suit, Dr. Raymond Chen, the foundation chairman. No relation, though people always asked. Lisa gestured toward our table, and both she and the chairman looked at me. Lisa said something else, and they laughed. We're leaving, James said, his voice tight with anger. Right now. No. I sat down in my chair, smoothing my practical dress over my knees. We're not. Sarah, they're humiliating you in front of everyone. I know. I picked up my water glass and took a sip, buying myself time to think. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Inside, I was screaming, but outside, I was perfectly calm. And if we leave now, they win. If I make a scene, they win. So, we're going to sit here, and we're going to smile, and we're going to watch Marcus give his presentation. His presentation of your research. Our research, I corrected automatically, then stopped. No. Not our research. My research. The immunotherapy protocols that could target cancer cells without destroying healthy tissue. The breakthrough that had taken me 4 years of 16-hour days and failed experiments and moments of such frustration I'd cried in the lab bathroom. The work that Marcus had claimed credit for in every grant proposal, every presentation, every conversation with the department head. The lights dimmed. The string quartet fell silent. A spotlight illuminated the stage, where a podium had been set up with a large screen behind it. The hospital CEO walked up to the microphone, launched into the standard welcome speech about the importance of cancer research, the hospital's commitment to innovation, the generous support of our donors. I barely heard any of it. I was watching Marcus, who was seated at the head table with Lisa and several board members. He was leaning back in his chair, relaxed, confident. He caught my eye and smiled. Not a friendly smile. A victor's smile. And now, the CEO said. His voice booming through the speakers, I'm pleased to introduce the head of our oncology research department, Dr. Marcus Webb, who will share some truly groundbreaking work in immunotherapy. Applause rippled through the ballroom. Marcus stood, buttoning his jacket, and walked to the stage. He looked comfortable up there, natural. He'd always been good at this part, the presentations, the schmoozing, the selling of ideas. I used to admire that about him. I was better at the research itself, the meticulous work of designing protocols and analyzing data. We were supposed to complement each other. Thank you all for being here tonight, Marcus began, his voice warm and engaging. I'm going to tell you about a journey that began 5 years ago, when I had a vision of a new approach to cancer treatment. My vision. My research. But he'd rewritten the history, made himself the protagonist. He clicked to the first slide, a complex diagram of cellular mechanisms that I'd drawn myself, modified and refined over months of work. He explained it beautifully, I had to admit. He understood the science, even if he hadn't done most of the actual work. The audience was rapt, leaning forward in their chairs. James reached under the table and squeezed my hand. I squeezed back but didn't look at him. I couldn't. If I saw the anger and sympathy in his eyes, I might cry, and I was not going to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Marcus clicked through more slides. Charts showing the success rates in our trials. Graphs comparing our approach to traditional treatments. Patient testimonials, faces I remembered, people whose lives our research had saved or extended. Every slide, every word, was about the work I'd done. He mentioned my name exactly once. With the assistance of Dr. Sarah Chen and our excellent research team. Assistance. Like I'd helped carry his bags. The presentation lasted 25 minutes. When it ended, the ballroom erupted in applause. People stood. A standing ovation for Marcus Webb and his brilliant vision. I stood too, because that's what you do. I clapped my hands together, the sound hollow in my ears. Marcus bowed slightly, accepting the adulation with practiced humility. Then his eyes found mine across the room, and he smiled that same victor's smile. The CEO returned to the podium, thanking Marcus, announcing that the foundation was prepared to commit $15 million over 5 years to continue this revolutionary research. More applause. Marcus shook hands with Dr. Raymond Chen, the foundation chairman. They posed for photographs, both men looking pleased. Lisa Romano stood and made her way to the stage, inserting herself into the photo op. She whispered something in Marcus's ear, and they both looked toward our table. Toward me. And laughed. That's when something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like ice under pressure, fractures spreading in every direction. I need some air, I said to James. I'll come with you. No. Stay here. I just need a minute. I walked out of the ballroom as calmly as I could, my heels clicking on the marble floor. I found a women's restroom down the hall, pushed through the door, and locked myself in a stall. I stood there, breathing carefully, my hands pressed flat against the cool metal walls. I did not cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, I thought. Marcus had taken credit for my work. That much was clear. But it was more than that, wasn't it? He'd systematically erased my contributions, rewritten the narrative to make himself the genius and me the assistant. And Lisa, ambitious, sharp-eyed Lisa, had seen an opportunity and aligned herself with the winning side. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I could file a complaint with the department head, but Marcus was the department head. I could go to the hospital administration, but they loved Marcus. He brought in millions in grants. What was I? A researcher who'd taken a supporting role, who'd been happy to work in the background while he took the spotlight. Except I hadn't been happy. I'd been strategic, building my career the way I'd been told to, slowly, carefully, not making waves. And where had that gotten me? A name card that called me an assistant. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I had over 3,000 unread messages, years of correspondence I'd been meaning to sort through. I started searching, looking for specific names, specific dates. 20 minutes later, I walked back into the ballroom. The formal program had ended, and the evening had shifted into the networking phase. Groups of people clustered around high-top tables, drinking champagne and making the kind of small talk that leads to funding opportunities and job offers. Marcus was holding court in the center of the room, surrounded by admirers. I found James near the bar. He handed me a glass of water without a word. Better? He asked. Getting there. I took a sip, then scanned the room. Where's Dr. Chen? The foundation chairman? Last I saw, he was talking to some board members near the windows. Sarah. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that I've been playing the wrong game. I've been trying to be the good colleague, the team player, the woman who doesn't make waves. And they've been playing a completely different game. What game is that? The one where they win. James studied my face. What are you going to do? I'm going to change the rules. I spotted Dr. Chen near the far wall, talking with two women I recognized as board members of the foundation. He was an older man, maybe 70, with silver hair and the kind of face that suggested he'd spent his career making hard decisions. He'd founded the National Cancer Research Foundation 30 years ago after his wife died of ovarian cancer. He was notoriously thorough, famously ethical, and absolutely intolerant of scientific fraud. I walked toward him, my practical navy dress suddenly feeling like armor. The two board members saw me coming and smiled politely. Doctor? Chen turned, his expression pleasant but guarded the look of someone who's been cornered at too many charity events by people wanting money or favors. Dr. Chen, I said, extending my hand. Sarah Chen. No relation, though people always ask. He chuckled, shaking my hand. Dr. Chen. I saw your name mentioned in Dr. Webb's presentation. You're part of his research team. I am. I was hoping I could have a word with you. Privately, if possible. I kept my voice low. Calm. Professional. Not desperate. Not angry. Just purposeful. One of the board members started to protest, but Dr. Chen held up a hand. Of course. Excuse us, ladies. He gestured toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, away from the clusters of people. What can I do for you, Dr. Chen? We stood near the tall windows overlooking the city. The lights of downtown stretched out below us, tiny and distant. I took a breath. This was it. The moment where I either stayed silent and let Marcus continue his narrative, or I spoke up and accepted whatever consequences came with it. I wanted to suggest, I said carefully, that before the foundation finalizes the funding agreement, you might want to verify the authorship of the research Dr. Webb presented tonight. Dr. Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. A sharpening of focus. I'm not sure I understand. All of Dr. Webb's publications are available online. The papers establishing the theoretical framework for the immunotherapy protocols, the trial designs, the data analysis, they're all properly archived and documented. I think you'll find that the authorship might not align exactly with the narrative presented this evening. Are you suggesting that Dr. Webb misrepresented his contributions? I'm suggesting that the story is more complicated than it appeared in his presentation. The foundation is making a significant investment based on specific claims about who developed this research, and who will be leading the work going forward. It would be prudent to verify those claims. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching my face. Why are you telling me this? It was a fair question. I could have let it go, taken my name card and my humiliation and gone home. I could have filed a complaint through official channels, started a long bureaucratic process that might or might not lead anywhere. Instead, I was standing here in my practical dress, potentially destroying my career with a few quiet words. Because, I said, meeting his gaze, science is built on truth. And I believe the foundation deserves to know the truth about where its money is going. He nodded slowly. I see. And you understand that if I investigate these claims, it could have significant repercussions? I do. For Dr. Webb. For the department. Possibly for you as well. I understand. Another long silence. Then, thank you for bringing this to my attention, Dr. Chen. I'll look into it. That was all. No dramatic confrontation, no promises of justice. Just a quiet acknowledgement that he'd heard me. I nodded. Thanked him. And walked back toward where James was waiting. What did you do? He asked as soon as I was close enough to hear. I told him to check the authorship records on the papers Marcus presented. James's eyes widened. Sarah. I know. But I'm done being invisible. I'm done being the assistant. I looked across the room at Marcus, who was still basking in his triumph, surrounded by admirers. Lisa stood at his elbow, her hand on his arm, laughing at something he said. Let's go home. We left through a side exit, avoiding the main crowd. In the car, James kept glancing at me like I might shatter. But I felt surprisingly steady. Calm, even. I'd lit a match and dropped it behind me. Now all I could do was wait to see if anything caught fire. The call came on Monday morning. I was in my lab, reviewing data from our latest trial, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Chen speaking. Dr. Chen, this is Raymond Chen from the Foundation. We met on Saturday evening. My heart kicked into a higher gear, but I kept my voice level. Of course. How can I help you? I took your suggestion and reviewed the publication records for the research Dr. Webb presented. I've spent the weekend going through every paper, every grant proposal, every piece of documentation I could find. I think we need to have a conversation. Would you be available to meet this afternoon? Yes. Absolutely. Good. Can you come to my office? I've already spoken with the hospital CEO and the head of your institution's research integrity office. They'll be joining us. That was when I realized how serious this had become. The research integrity office only got involved when there were allegations of scientific misconduct. Fabrication of data, plagiarism, misrepresentation of authorship, these were career-ending offenses. I'll be there, I said. I hung up and sat very still in my lab chair, surrounded by the centrifuges and microscopes and refrigerators full of samples that represented years of my work. What had I done? I'd wanted Marcus to acknowledge my contributions, to share credit where credit was due. I hadn't meant to. No. That wasn't true. I'd known exactly what I was doing when I suggested Dr. Chen investigate. I'd known what he might find. Because the truth was worse than simple credit stealing. I'd suspected it for months, but I'd been too afraid to confirm it. Too afraid of what it would mean if I was right. I pulled up my email and started going through the files I'd found on Saturday night. Correspondence between Marcus and Lisa, discussing data from trials I'd designed. Emails from pharmaceutical companies asking for clarification on protocols I'd written, but signed with Marcus's name. Draft papers where my contributions were slowly edited out, version by version, until I'd been reduced to a footnote. And then there were the data files. The results from our most recent trial, the one that Marcus had highlighted in his presentation as proof that our approach was working. I pulled up the raw data, the numbers we'd collected from actual patients. Then I pulled up the data from Marcus's presentation slides. They didn't match. Not dramatically, he'd been too smart for that. But here and there, outliers had been removed. Success rates had been rounded up. Complications had been minimized. The story the data told was essentially the same, but it had been optimized. Made cleaner, more impressive, more fundable. That was scientific fraud. Not just taking credit, but manipulating data to support a narrative. I'd suspected. I hadn't wanted to believe it. But now, looking at the numbers, there was no other explanation. My phone buzzed. A text from James. How are you holding up? I typed back. Meeting with Foundation this afternoon. The integrity office is involved. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then? Want me there? No. This is something I need to do alone. Okay, I love you, whatever happens. Love you too. The meeting was at 3 o'clock in Dr. Chen's office, which was in a sleek high-rise downtown, far from the hospital. I wore a gray suit, carried a briefcase full of documentation I'd printed out that morning. Evidence. That's what it was now. Not just emails and data files, but evidence of misconduct. The receptionist directed me to a conference room where 4 people were already seated. Dr. Chen, the hospital's CEO. Dr. Patricia Walsh, a woman I'd met exactly twice in 11 years. The head of the Research Integrity Office. Dr. Michael Torres, who I knew by reputation only, and a younger woman I didn't recognize who turned out to be the Foundation's legal counsel. Everyone shook hands. I sat down at the table, hyper-aware of how quiet the room was. Through the windows, I could see the city spread out below us, people going about their normal Monday, unaware that in this room, someone's career was about to end. Dr. Chen, Dr. Raymond Chen began, thank you for coming. As I mentioned on the phone, I've spent the weekend reviewing the publication history of the research presented at Saturday's Gala. I'd like you to walk us through your role in developing the immunotherapy protocols, Dr. Webb described. So I did. I started at the beginning, 5 years ago, when Marcus and I had first discussed the theoretical framework. I explained how I'd developed the initial protocols, designed the trials, analyzed the data. How Marcus had been involved in the strategic direction and grant writing, but the actual scientific work, the hours in the lab, the careful analysis, the breakthrough insights had been primarily mine. I pulled out documentation as I spoke. Emails showing me discussing ideas that later appeared in papers with Marcus as sole first author. Lab notebooks with dates and observations in my handwriting. Draft protocols with my revisions and notes. Dr. Torres, the integrity officer, took copious notes. Dr. Walsh, the CEO, looked increasingly uncomfortable. Dr. Chen's expression remained neutral, but his questions were sharp and specific. And the data presented in Dr. Webb's slides on Saturday, he asked. Specifically, the success rates from the Phase 2 trial. This was the moment. I could show them what I'd found, confirm my suspicions of data manipulation, and there would be no going back. Or I could stay silent about that particular issue, focus only on the authorship questions, and let that be enough. I thought about the patients in our trials. People who'd trusted us with their lives, with their hope. They deserved to know the truth about our results. The foundation deserved to make funding decisions based on accurate information. I have concerns, I said carefully, about whether the data presented matches the raw results from the trial. The room went very quiet. Dr. Torres leaned forward. Can you be more specific? I pulled out the comparison I'd prepared, the raw data on one page, the presentation data on another. I walked them through the discrepancies. Small changes, individually insignificant. But together, they painted a picture of results that had been carefully curated to tell the most compelling story. This could be simple error, Dr. Walsh said, but her voice lacked conviction. It could be, I agreed. But these aren't random errors. The changes consistently favor a positive interpretation of the results. Dr. Torres made another note. We'll need to examine this thoroughly. Dr. Chen, Sarah, do you have any reason to believe that Dr. Webb would deliberately manipulate data? Did I? Or was I just angry, looking for reasons to destroy him because he'd humiliated me with a name card and a dismissive introduction? But no. The evidence was there. I hadn't fabricated it out of spite. The numbers were what they were. I believe, I said slowly, that the evidence should speak for itself. The meeting lasted 2 more hours. They asked questions. I provided answers and documentation. By the time I left, my briefcase was lighter, I'd given them copies of everything, and my heart was heavier. I'd set something in motion that I couldn't stop, even if I wanted to. I drove back to the hospital, parked in my usual spot, and sat in my car for a long time. Then I went to my lab, locked the door, and sat at my desk in the gathering darkness. My phone rang. Marcus. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello. Sarah. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Can you come to my office? I'm in my lab. You're welcome to come here. A pause. Fine. I'll be there in 5 minutes. He arrived in 3. I heard his footsteps in the hallway, quick and angry. He didn't knock, just pushed through the door. His face was flushed, his jaw clenched. What did you do? He asked. No preamble, no pretense. I answered some questions about our research. You went to the foundation chairman. You made accusations. I suggested he verify the authorship records. Which should have been straightforward if everything was as you presented it. He stared at me, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw past the confident department head to the insecure man underneath. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Integrity Office is launching a formal investigation. The foundation has put the funding on hold. You've destroyed years of work. I've destroyed nothing, I said, my voice quiet but firm. If there's anything to be destroyed, you did that yourself. This is because of Saturday, isn't it? Because of the name card. Sarah. That was Lisa's idea. Some kind of joke. It wasn't a joke, Marcus. It was a message. And I received it loud and clear. He ran his hand through his hair, the gesture of a man who'd lost control of a situation. What do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry about the card. I'm sorry if you felt undervalued. We can fix this. I can add you as co-lead on the next grant proposal. I don't want your pity position. I want credit for the work I've actually done. You have credit. Your name is on the papers. As 2nd or 3rd author. As assistants. But we both know who designed those protocols, who analyzed that data, who made the breakthroughs that you presented as your vision. He looked at me for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. The desperation faded, replaced by something colder. You have no idea how the game is played, do you? This isn't about who does the work, Sarah. It's about who can sell it, who can bring in the funding, who can lead. You're a brilliant researcher, but you're terrible at everything else. The politics, the networking, the presentations. I've been protecting you, carrying you. Carrying me? I stood up, and he actually took a step back. You've been building your career on my work. And when I didn't complain, when I kept my head down and kept producing results, you got bolder. Until Saturday, when you literally introduced me as your assistant. And maybe I would have kept accepting it, kept telling myself that was just how things worked. Except, I stopped. I'd been about to mention the data manipulation, but that was dangerous territory. If he knew I'd found that, knew what I'd shared with the integrity office. Except what? He prompted, his eyes narrowing. Except I've spent 11 years watching women like me do brilliant work and get passed over for promotions, for recognition, for credit. And I'm tired, Marcus. I'm tired of being invisible. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to be visible? Fine. Enjoy your visibility when the integrity investigation clears me, because it will, and everyone in this department knows you tried to sabotage your own department head. Enjoy being visible when no other institution will hire you, because you're known as someone who makes false accusations instead of doing the work. You think you're fighting for justice? You just ended your own career. He walked out, leaving the door open behind him. I sat back down at my desk, my hands shaking. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd just committed professional suicide. But at least I'd done it standing up instead of kneeling down. The investigation took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of hushed conversations that stopped when I walked into rooms. 6 weeks of colleagues avoiding eye contact in the hallways. 6 weeks of existing in a limbo, where I didn't know if I'd have a job at the end of it all. Lisa Romano stopped talking to me entirely. Actually, she did more than that. She actively worked against me, telling anyone who would listen that I was bitter, jealous, trying to destroy Marcus because I couldn't handle that he was more successful. She was convincing, too. Several junior researchers who I'd mentored started treating me like I had some contagious disease. James tried to support me, but there wasn't much he could do. Come work in cardiac with me, he joked one night over dinner that neither of us was eating. I'll defend you from any department heads who get mouthy. I appreciate the offer, I said, but I think one surgeon in the family is enough. Then quit. Walk away. We don't need your salary. It's not about the money, James. It's about the principle. Principles don't pay very well, he muttered, but he dropped it. Dr. Torres, the integrity officer, interviewed me 3 times. Long, detailed sessions where he asked about every email, every draft, every conversation I could remember. He interviewed Marcus. He interviewed Lisa. He interviewed every member of our research team, every graduate student and postdoc who'd worked in our lab. He examined the raw data from all our trials. He compared it line by line with what had been published, what had been presented, what had been submitted in grant proposals. And then, on a rainy Tuesday in October, I got a call asking me to come to the CEO's office. I went alone. The same people were there as before: Dr. Walsh, Dr. Torres, Dr. Raymond Chen via video conference, and this time, a representative from the hospital's legal department. Dr. Chen, Dr. Walsh began, and I couldn't read her expression. The investigation into the authorship and data integrity concerns you raised has concluded. I held my breath. Dr. Torres, would you like to present the findings? Dr. Torres opened a folder, though I suspected he'd memorized what was inside. Our investigation has determined that Dr. Marcus Webb systematically misrepresented his contributions to the immunotherapy research project over a period of approximately 3 years. While his role in securing funding and providing strategic direction was significant, the core scientific work, protocol development, trial design, and data analysis was primarily conducted by Dr. Sarah Chen, with contributions from other team members. Dr. Webb's consistent positioning of himself as the primary researcher and innovator was misleading and violated our institution's authorship guidelines. I felt something loosen in my chest. Vindication, maybe. Or just relief that I wasn't crazy. That the evidence had confirmed what I knew to be true. But Dr. Torres wasn't finished. Additionally, our examination of the trial data revealed discrepancies between the raw results and the data presented in Dr. Webb's Gala presentation, and in several grant proposals. While these discrepancies don't rise to the level of fabrication or falsification, they do constitute a pattern of selective reporting and data optimization that misrepresents the actual results of the research. This is considered a serious breach of scientific integrity. Dr. Walsh took over. As a result of these findings, Dr. Webb has been placed on administrative leave, pending further disciplinary proceedings. Dr. Romano, who assisted in preparing several of the presentations containing optimized data, has also been placed on administrative leave. The hospital is conducting a comprehensive review of all research conducted by the department under Dr. Webb's leadership. The foundation, Dr. Chen's voice came through the video screen, has decided to restructure the funding agreement. We still believe in the value of this research. But we will not be funding any projects led by Dr. Webb. Instead, we're proposing a new structure, with new leadership. Dr. Chen Sarah, we'd like to discuss the possibility of you taking over as the principal investigator for the immunotherapy research program. I stared at the screen, certain I'd misheard. I'm sorry, what? $15 million over 5 years, with you as the lead. You'll have full control over the research direction, hiring decisions, and publication strategy. We believe you've more than earned it. The room was quiet except for the rain against the windows. They were all looking at me, waiting for my response. I stopped, collected my thoughts. I'd be honored. Thank you. Dr. Walsh smiled for the first time since I'd entered the room. Congratulations, Dr. Chen. You've earned this. After the meeting, I walked back to my lab in a daze. The same hallways, the same fluorescent lights, the same coffee-stained carpet. But everything felt different. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the assistant. I was the lead investigator on a $15 million research program. I sat down at my desk and pulled out my phone to call James, but before I could dial, there was a knock on my door. Marcus stood in the doorway. He looked diminished somehow, smaller than I remembered. His tie was loose, his eyes red-rimmed. "Can I come in?" he asked. I should have said no. Should have called security. Protected myself from whatever confrontation he was about to initiate. But something in his posture made me nod. He came in and stood awkwardly in the middle of the lab. "I suppose you heard." "I did." "You destroyed me." "No," I said, surprised by how calm my voice was. "You destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I never meant." "Saturday, at the gala, that name card, I didn't know Lisa was going to do that. But you didn't correct it, did you? You saw it, you saw me see it, and you smiled. Because it confirmed what you'd been doing for 3 years. Erasing me. Making me invisible. I was trying to position the department for maximum funding. You can't understand the pressure, the politics, then you should have talked to me. We were supposed to be partners, Marcus. You could have said, Sarah, I need to take the lead on presentations because that's what the donors respond to, but I'll make sure you get proper credit. We could have found a way to work together that didn't involve you systematically stealing credit for my work. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, would you have agreed to that? I don't know. But you never gave me the choice. He nodded slowly, accepting that. For what it's worth, your research really is brilliant. I wasn't lying about that. I know it is. I've always known. But thank you for finally saying it. He left after that. I never saw him again. I heard later that he took a job at a pharmaceutical company, something in management where his gift for presentations and politics could be useful without giving him access to research data he might be tempted to optimize. Lisa Romano disappeared from the hospital within days of being placed on leave. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to California, taken a position at a biotech startup. I hoped she'd learned something from the experience, but I suspected she'd just learned to be more careful about getting caught. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of rebuilding. I hired a new team, established clear authorship guidelines, and implemented rigorous data integrity checks. I published corrections to the papers where data had been optimized, even though it was embarrassing to admit the errors. Science is built on truth, and if I was going to lead this program, it would be built on a foundation of truth. The research continued. Without the pressure to make every result look perfect, without the need to optimize every data point for maximum impact, we actually made better progress. We learned from our failures, We adjusted our protocols based on what the data actually showed, not what we wished it would show. And slowly, the other women in the department started coming to me. Not officially, not in any organized way. But they'd stop by my lab, ask for advice, share their own stories of being overlooked or having their contributions minimized. I listened. I mentored. I made sure that when we published papers, the authorship reflected the actual work done, not the politics of who had the most seniority or charisma. James was proud, though he tried not to be too obvious about it. My wife, the department head, he'd say, grinning. Should I start calling you boss? Only if you want to sleep on the couch. 1 year after the gala, the foundation held another fundraising event. This time, I was the one giving the presentation. I wore a red dress, not the same one Lisa had worn, but red nonetheless. Visible. Vibrant. Unapologetic. I stood at that podium and talked about our research. Our setbacks and our successes. The patients whose lives we'd extended, and the ones we'd lost but learned from. I showed the real data, imperfect and honest. And at the end, I thanked my team by name, giving credit where credit was due. The applause was warm, genuine. I looked out at the audience and saw Dr. Raymond Chen smiling. Saw James beaming from his seat. Saw young researchers who were just starting their careers, maybe imagining themselves standing where I stood. After the presentation, several people came up to thank me, to ask questions, to pitch ideas for collaboration. And then I saw a young woman hovering at the edge of the crowd, waiting for the others to clear. She had that hungry look I recognized someone desperate to prove herself, to make a mark. Dr. Chen? She said when she finally got close enough. I'm Dr. Amy Rodriguez. I just finished my fellowship in oncology, and I've been following your work. I was wondering if... I know you probably get 1,000 requests, but if you were hiring, I'd love to be considered for your team. I looked at her, this bright-eyed woman at the start of her career, and I thought about all the ways this could go. I could take her on, mentor her, and then slowly start claiming credit for her ideas. I could use her work to build my own reputation, the way Marcus had used mine. The temptation would always be there, the easy path of taking credit, of positioning yourself as the genius while the people who do the actual work remain invisible. Or I could do better. Could be better. Send me your CV, I said. And some writing samples, papers you've authored or contributed to. I want to see your work, not just your credentials. Her face lit up. Really? Thank you so much, Dr. Chen. I won't disappoint you. I'm sure you won't. But Dr. Rodriguez? One thing you should know about working in my lab. We give credit where credit is earned. If you do the work, your name goes first. If you have the idea, you get to present it. I don't build my reputation on making other people invisible. She nodded, maybe not fully understanding yet what I meant. But she would. If she came to work for me, she'd learn that there was another way to build a career. Not through stealing and minimizing and making yourself look big by making others look small. But through actual work, actual collaboration, actual integrity. That's the lesson I'd learned. Standing in that ballroom with a name card that called me an assistant. That quiet power isn't about whispering threats or playing political games. It's about knowing your worth, standing up for it, and refusing to be erased. It's about building something real instead of something that just looks impressive from the outside. I'd spent years being invisible, telling myself that was the price of success. But that night at the gala, when Marcus and Lisa laughed at me, when I saw my work presented as someone else's vision, that's when I learned that invisibility isn't humility. It's complicity. So I'd stopped being invisible. I'd spoken up, told the truth, and accepted the consequences. And yes, there had been consequences. Colleagues who still whispered about me. Questions about my judgment. Concerns that I was difficult or not a team player. But I had my research. I had my team. I had my integrity. And I had a red dress that I wore whenever I needed to remind myself that I deserved to be seen.